How are you guys feeling about the first test coming up? Okay. Like I said, the study guide is already up. Okay, you're gonna find that in next week's module because that's where you will also find the exam game review that we do. That will be available to you after Tuesday, after class on Tuesday when we go through it. So you'll have that to work with until Thursday. And it's a game where you can just kind of keep going and playing it over and over again. And I do take questions directly from the exam and place it into the game. And then that's also where you're going to find the exam that, again, you guys will do that on your own time, anytime Thursday. You'll have from about 6 a.m. in the morning till 11:59 p.m. at night to get that done. Remember, just try not to use a Chromebook, okay? And the other thing that students often do is they say they have a hard time. Actually, I'm just gonna go show you guys. Sometimes have a difficult time downloading the Respondus lockdown. And that's because you have to make sure you're clicking on the right download link. Okay, so there's a different link if you have a PC versus if you have a Mac. So just make sure that you're clicking on the correct one, and then there shouldn't be an issue. So if we go to week 4, this is where your overview and to-do list is basically going to say study these things. This is information. Okay, Respondus information for students. Make sure that you read through this and you're kind of familiar with it. And then I think, just kidding, that's video. So if you click on that first link, okay, it says, do you need Mac version? If you need the Mac version, then you need to click on this instead, okay? Everybody see that? So that's what you need to make sure that you have downloaded prior to going to take the exam. Again, you're not allowed to have any notes or use your book or anything. And whatever device you are using, it has to have a camera. Okay, there has to be a camera installed on it because it will record you the whole time you are testing. Okay. Any questions about that? I recommend you do download it prior to, just because I think it'll be a little bit easier and one less thing for you to stress about, especially if you've given yourself like, a 2-hour time period to take the exam, but then you end up having to troubleshoot or whatever. So I recommend trying to do that before the actual test day. See if I can bring this back up. So this is our last chapter prior to this exam. So again, chapters 1 through 5 is what's on the first exam. And this is all about improving your aerobic fitness. I did get a question or two about a lab that is posted on on campus. Don't worry about that lab. Okay, I'll change the due date. You're not late or anything like that. It's something that I'm still hoping that we can do as a class, perhaps that week after our first exam. So don't worry about that VO2 max lab, okay? So why is aerobic fitness important? We know it leads to higher levels of routine physical activity, and those activities of daily living is going to be easier. Essentially, your heart will not have to work as hard to do those things the more fit that you are, okay? You might be able to do something at a much lower heart rate if you are fit compared to somebody who is not. Low levels of cardiorespiratory fitness are associated with a higher risk of premature death from all causes. Allows you to engage in activities of daily living, allows you to more fully participate in recreational and sport activities, and it burns a relatively large number of calories, which helps to maintain weight. There are different ways to estimate heart rate, okay? Actually, the best time to determine what your resting heart rate is in the morning before you even get out of bed. Okay, so tomorrow morning, if you guys remember this, before you reach for your phone, before you reach for anything, or maybe if you have to reach for your phone for a timer, but before you get up out of bed, go ahead and you can take your heart rate and figure out what that is. You can find a carotid artery, okay, and or the radial artery of the wrist. You can pick either of those. If you want to watch it for 1 full minute, that would be the best representation because that is giving you your true value. However, most people don't want to do that, so they break it up. So for instance, right now, what we can do is everyone can find your brachial, sorry, not your brachial, your radial or your carotid artery. And we will time it, but we're only going to time it for 30 seconds, right? So did everybody find it? Go ahead and find one. Make sure you can feel that pulse. Okay?
What arm do you use? Is it your right one?
So just avoid using like your thumb. It doesn't matter. You can go this way. All right. You're going to count it for 30 seconds. Ready, set, go. Stop. Now you're going to multiply that by 2, right? Because we're trying to determine what the average is for 1 full minute, 1 full cycle. So take that number, multiply it by 2, that gives you an estimation of your heart rate now. Again, not a true representation of resting heart rate because that's something that you want to do while you're lying in bed before you even get out of bed for the morning. The thing that we most often measure that we use most often to measure someone's cardiorespiratory fitness is called VO2 max, and you've heard me say this. And really what this is the maximal amount of oxygen that your body can not only take in, but can utilize, okay? So you can be sucking in a lot of oxygen, but your body may not be actually utilizing a lot of that. And if it's not utilizing a lot of it, then it's going to start to affect your energy, your performance. So the more fit somebody is, because we're talking about aerobic fitness here, that means in order to have energy, we are using aerobic means with oxygen to create that energy, okay? So the more fit somebody is, the higher their VO2 max is going to be. You'll see a chart here in just a second giving you some estimations. I believe the world record for VO2 max was set by a 16-year-old male. I think he's 16, was 16. And it was close to like 99. Okay, that's a very large number because you guys can't probably hardly see these. If we're looking at this, it says fitness levels for aerobic capacity in males and females. For males, in order to be superior, if you are 20 to 29 years old, you need to be above 66.3. Okay, above 66.3. Excellent is 57. Good is 50. Fair 44.9. Poor is 38.1, and very poor is 38 and lower. For females, ages 20 to 29, superior is considered 56 and higher, excellent 46.5, good 40.6, fair 34.6, poor 28.6, and very poor 28.5. Now there's different ways to estimate this VO2 max though, okay? In the laboratory setting, which is obviously a very controlled setting, controlled environment, we use a computer to estimate. You wear a mask, it's very uncomfortable. Have any of the runners in here done that before? Abby?
I've seen it done, but I haven't.
Okay. If you've never done one before, I highly recommend you do it. It is a very uncomfortable experience, but it's a great experience to have. You have a mask on, you have to breathe solely through that mask, okay? And that's what gets difficult about it, is you feel like you can't breathe as easy. And then you do a graded exercise test. It's hard. It's meant to take you to your ultimate spot where you feel as though you cannot go anymore. If you take another step, you're gonna fall, okay? And when you get to that point, that's when the test stops. And that is supposed to be probably the best, most accurate way to estimate one's VO2 max. It doesn't have to actually be done only on a treadmill. It can be done also on a stationary bike, okay? I've also seen it done using a hand bike. So based on the individual and what their capabilities are might determine how you go about this process. The way that we estimate it in class is typically via that 1 mile run or 1.5 mile run, 1 mile walk, okay? Now, I want you to think about what I just told you about the VO2 max and why, and being on the treadmill and how that test is supposed to take you to your max, okay? So let's say I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna go out, we're gonna do this VO2 max test, and you decide that you're going to do the 1.5 mile run. But during your run, you get to a couple spots where you just wanna walk, right? You want to catch your breath, you want to walk, okay? Do you think that this is going to be the best measure or most representative of what your VO2 max is? No, right? Because I just told you that in order to really estimate it, you have to be taken to your max. And sometimes that doesn't happen in the classroom setting if we're at the track or if we're on the track or whatever it is, because it's hard work. It's meant to be like that. If you choose to walk the 1 mile, are you walking on a very comfortable pace or are you walking? Are you booking it? Are you making yourself breathe? Is your heart rate up? If those things aren't in place, then this test is kind of null and void, okay? So what should aerobic workout components, what should this training look like? First, we need a warm-up, right? Ideally, 5 to 10 minutes is a good amount for a warm-up. The heart or the main part of the workout is obviously that endurance conditioning. And you see they only list about 30 minutes here. And that's aligned with ACSM's recommendations, right? Of trying to get 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise per week. And then a 10-minute cool down. If we look at the warm-up more specifically, something that a lot of people miss in the warm-up is that actually you should reach the same level of intensity in your warm-up as you expect to in your workout. Okay? A lot of people don't do that. And if you're not adequately warmed up, then your performance during that main conditioning phase is going to be affected. you are going to continue to use some of that conditioning phase as your warm-up and maybe not really realize that. The goal is to increase the temperature of the muscles, right? We increase the temperature of the core. Maybe you're jogging to warm up, right? Your heart rate increases, your blood pressure increases, your core temperature increases, and in effect, that is helping to increase the temperature of the muscles, okay? I want you to think of it like this. You ever been outside and you're walking and it's freezing cold outside? Okay, let's say it's 0 degrees outside, and there's gum on the ground, and you step on the gum. Does that gum, do you think that gum will stick to your shoe if it's 0 out? ISIS says no. No, it's not going to, okay? That gum, what if you picked up that gum and you tried to stretch it? What's it gonna do? It's gonna snap, it's gonna break, okay? There's no stretchy component to it because of the temperature. Now, let's take a 95-degree day. You're outside and you step on gum. What's that gum gonna do? It's gonna stick to your shoe, okay? And it might even do that really nasty thing where half of it's stuck to your shoe, the other half is stuck to the ground. You're trying to get it off and it's all over the place. It's super stretchy. The temperature heated up. Your muscles are the same way, okay? So think of your muscles just like that gum. When they are cold and you ask them to stretch, they are likely to want to snap, okay? They don't like it. You have to warm them up. You have to increase their temperature in order to help them be more elastic. And again, that's kind of the key takeaway here in a warm-up. A warm-up, you should reach the same intensity that you plan to or expect to in your conditioning phase, okay? So in this conditioning phase, here is the fit, and I want you to notice there's 2 more letters here, okay, V and P. So we have fit VP for this aerobic conditioning. Frequency, again, we already know this, but volume here, the new term, is the total amount of exercise, and oftentimes people will display this as the total amount of calories burned for aerobic conditioning. I would say if we're talking about strength conditioning, volume is usually going to be expressed as the total amount of weights lifted, okay? Numerical value. Progression is just the manner in which this program is progressed over time, right? How are you increasing that stimulus? How are you making it more challenging in order to ask yourself to become more fit? You might plateau every now and then, but again, that's when we have to apply a new stimulus, and that's how we then have progression. So what's the frequency? This is something you guys already know, right? Recommended for 3 to 5 days a week. That vigorous activity, we can probably narrow that down to 3 days a week. Moderate activity, we need to do it a little bit more frequently. So we're looking about 5 days a week. Vigorous activity, again, we're talking about that 80%, okay? On the edge of 7.5, 75% to above would be considered vigorous activity. And again, that means you're working out at your max or 75% of your max heart rate. And we'll figure out what your max heart rate here is in just a minute, okay? Vigor or moderate activity, that's working out about that 50 to 60% range of your max heart rate. We're talking about a scale of 1 to 10. In the fitness world, oftentimes something called the Borg scale is used, and this is a rating, a scale, it's a rating of perceived exertion. It's called RPE, rate of perceived exertion, okay? And usually that is a scale of 1 to 20. 20 being, this is the hardest thing you've ever done in your life, you're about ready to kill over and die, and then anything working downward from there. If you are a personal trainer and you're working with an individual who might be on beta blockers, for instance, okay? Anybody in here know what beta blockers do? Okay, beta blockers will only keep the heart within a certain range. So they won't allow the heart to perhaps get above 120 beats per minute. And this is important, especially for individuals who may have heart disease or heart condition. So you ever go to the gym and you sit down or you're on the treadmill, whatever you're doing, you put your hands on the little heart rate reading thing? You ever done that before? It gives you a guesstimate of what your heart rate is, right? And that's important because usually there's a scale right there telling you kind of, are you burning fat or are you burning carbs or whatever? Well, an individual who's on beta blockers, if he or she puts their hands on that little heart rate monitor, it'll jump all over the place, okay? So if you're a personal trainer and you're trying to base how hard your client is working on their heart rate, it doesn't work. Because maybe it says 120 and then it jumps down to 70. And then it'll jump to 80 and then it'll jump to 20 or 120. It's all over the place. So you can't gauge how hard your client is working based on their heart rate. Then it becomes important to use some sort of rate of perceived exertion. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the hardest thing you've ever done in your life, how do you feel? You feel like a 7? Okay, I know kind of what to do from here. Maybe we stay at a 7 for a bit, we need to back off, whatever. Then you know how to apply a stimulus. This is just that scale, okay, of, again, that moderate activity is usually considered 50 to 60 or 5 or 6. And then once we move into that 7.5 to 8 plus range, this is going to be considered more of that vigorous exercise. Some of you, most of you are probably already doing that and not really realizing it. Determining intensity for the workout. There is something called a talk test, okay? And the really behind this is just if you're able to speak during the workout without gasping for air or for breath between the words, then are you working out hard enough? I don't know, okay? If you can talk leisurely during this, you might not be exercising quite as hard as you need to. You might not be applying that large enough stimulus for you to then be able to increase your fitness. The main way that is used, though, is determining heart rate and figuring out what percent of that heart rate you are working out at. There's a couple different ways to do this. The first one is to take 220 minus your age. So everybody go ahead and do that right now. Okay. Okay, that's pretty simple. So now let's say that you are working out at 65% of your max heart rate. How do we figure that out? If I want to check my heart rate on the treadmill, okay, or on the stationary bike, whatever it is, how do I know how many beats per minute I should be looking for? What do we do? Casey? Yep, exactly. So you're going to take whatever you got here. I'm going to make it really easy. Okay? So we're going to multiply by the decimal factor for our percentage value. Okay? 6, 120, 1200, or sorry, 120 what? 130, thanks. 120, oh, so close. Okay? So that is what I would be looking for. 130 beats per minute is saying that if I were a 20-year-old, I'm working out at 65% of my max heart rate. Am I working out moderately or vigorously? Moderately. Okay, moderately. Okay. Because again, 75% and above usually is considered more vigorous. Now, there's a different option over here. This one is not used as often just because there's a couple more steps, but you're going to take 206.9, okay, minus your age, okay, times 0.67. So go ahead and do that one as well. I think I get something like this. Okay, so you see there's a little bit of a difference between these two. Now, do you think that would ever happen where an individual could be working out at or higher than what their estimated max heart rate is? Yes, definitely. If you are working with somebody and they are there, I've watched this happen before, okay? I've watched somebody do a max VO2 test and go above their estimated heart rate. And something that we needed to be very cognizant of the time was that person's age, okay? So if that person is older and they get, let's say 5 to 10 points higher or 5 to 10 beats per minute higher than what their max estimated heart rate is, that's a good time to probably think about stopping the test. Solely because of age. Now, if somebody is younger, very fit, and they're doing okay, it's probably okay to proceed with that test until they decide that they need to stop the test. But it definitely happens that people are able to do that. So same thing would be here, right? If we wanted to work out at 65% of our max heart rate, we're just going to take that value, our estimated MHR, and we're going to multiply that by our percent or our activity factor, and that would give us our target heart rate. Okay? So this value right here is called the target heart rate, THR, and that's what you see listed right here. Okay. Questions about this? Any confusion? Awesome. Okay. What about our time? Recommended, right? 30 minutes is what we're looking for. That's for moderate intensity. Less fit equals less time. More fit equals more time. Okay? That means, again, the more fit you are, the more stimulus you have to apply to increase your fitness. Somebody who is less fit or has been sedentary, has not been very active, baby steps, right? There's a reason, and any sport you probably ever played, this is not true. I remember this to be true of track when I was in high school, okay? First day of track, it was always an easy day. Always an easy day. I don't think that was always true for like football or wrestling, for instance. But I know it to be true for my coaches, the coaches that I kind of grew up with track. Wasn't true for basketball either. So, side story, our basketball coach, he thought it was a good idea to have us run 3 miles in the gym. Start a practice. You know how many laps that is? I can't even remember. It's a lot though. And it was a bad thing because not only are there like 30 or 40 girls who are trying to run a bazillion laps around the gym, but do you think that there were girls who were more fit and then girls who were less fit? There was a huge gap. And I'm not kidding you. Some girls got lapped 10, 12 times plus. It was kind of demeaning, you know. It wasn't a great situation. So if you're a coach, don't ever do that. Don't tell your athletes to run 3 miles in a gym. 1 minute of vigorous exercise is equal to 2 minutes of moderate intensity, right? You got that 1 to 2 or 2 to 1 ratio there. where half the time is needed if you are working vigorously. Again, this is a great reason why the excuse of I don't have time isn't a great one, because they're showing there's substantial evidence that individuals who can work out vigorously 20 to 25 minutes only 3 days a week are showing substantial health benefits. Okay? So we definitely have the time. We just have to choose to take that time. Typer mode, you know, they just are giving you some different exercise group activities, the characteristics, examples. For instance, the group A says endurance activities that can be done with minimal skill and with minimal fitness. Give me an example of what that would be. Minimal skill, minimal fitness.
Walking.
Walking, okay? It's exactly what it says right here. Those individuals could be walking. They could be engaged in bicycling. They could be doing some slow dancing. Zumba, Zumba. Zumba, fitness, the dance, is that what it's called? Okay, I got dragged into doing that one. It's not my thing. I'm just not a dancer in any way, shape, or form. But I did it one time, and it wasn't really an exercise for me. I was probably doing it all wrong. But that thing is popular. Okay, there's still a lot of people doing that, doing like hip hop dance for exercise. That type of stuff is popular. So we could start off with some just slow, easy dance and progress from there. It's all about finding what they're happy with, what makes them feel good, and sometimes that is not feeling like they're actually working out. All right, here's a new term, guys, and you do need to have this equation memorized, just like you need to have at least this equation right here memorized, okay? 220 minus your age, and in order to determine your max heart rate. For volume, usually again, we express this as calories, total calories expended. The goal is to expend at least 1,000 calories a week via aerobic type activity, okay? We use something called a MET, or a metabolic equivalent, to determine this, to determine calories burned. And this is kind of what if you go to the gym again, and you run on the treadmill and you get done, it probably will show you an estimation of how many calories you burned. This is what it's basing it off of, okay? Basing it off of a MET value. So again, a metabolic equivalent, when you're at rest, your MET value is about 3.5 milliliters of oxygen per kilogram of body weight per minute, okay? At rest. So essentially that's how much oxygen your body is taking in and utilizing, thus burning calories in order to utilize that. So at rest, it's 3.5. So when we determine what those use MET values in order to determine how many calories a person is burning for an activity, it's an average, and it's all based off or relevant to resting level MET value. Okay, so this one, I know many of you cannot see this, but what your book has in it is this table right here, table 5.7, and it has all these different types of activities listed, and then it provides a MET value for it. For instance, if you're running at 6 miles per hour, okay, the MET value for that is 9.8. If you are swimming and you're doing the butterfly, the MET value for that is 13.8. Okay, walking at 2 miles per hour, 2.8. However, if you bump it up and you're walking 4.5 miles per hour, now the MET value is 7. So how do we determine your calories that you might be burning for an activity? What we're going to do is we're just going to use an example here. We're going to say everybody, let's use something we know everybody does, and that's at least walk, okay? So we're going to be walking at 3.5 miles per hour. So I want you to write down the MET value of 4.3. The MET value for that activity is 4.3. Then you're going to take 4.3 and you're going to multiply it by 3.5, because again, one MET is equal to the resting value of 3.5 milliliters of oxygen per kilogram of body weight per minute. So since kilogram of body weight, you see, is in here for 1 net equivalent, we know down here in this formula, we need to convert our weight in pounds to kilograms. Okay? You guys remember how to do this? Take your weight in pounds and divide by 2.2. So we have 4.3, which is our met activity value, times 3.5, times your weight or your mass in kilograms, divided by 200. Okay, divided by 200. I'm gonna throw a number out there. Okay. So I want everybody to go ahead and figure this out. Figure out how many calories per minute you would be burning if you were walking at 3.5 miles per hour. And again, this is a formula you want to have memorized. Okay. Does anybody want to share what they got?
I got around 5.6.
5.6, okay, good. It shouldn't be a super high number because again, this is per minute. And it's going to be influenced by your weight in kilograms, obviously. So it's going to vary based on the individual size. Okay. So now let's say, take that number. Let's say that you did this for 35 minutes. How many calories did you burn? How many calories did you burn, Cameron? 196 calories, okay? So he was walking at 3.5 miles per hour and he did that for 35 minutes and he burned 196 calories. Right? All right, now what I want you to do is I'm gonna throw out a biking one, a running one, and a walking one. I want you to choose one of those activity factor values, and I want you to use that to estimate how many calories you would burn if you did it for 60 minutes. You understand? Okay, so if you are bicycling stationary, and you're working at moderate to vigorous effort, the net value for that is 6.8. If you are running at 7 miles per hour, the net value for that is 11.0. And if you are walking at 4.5 miles per hour, the net value for that is 7.0. Okay, so again, we've got biking at 6.8. We have running at 11.0, and we have walking at 7.0. Choose one of those and determine how many calories you would burn if you did that for 60 minutes. Brandon, you wanna tell us what you did?
Sure. So you want me to go through the whole thing or just the final answer?
Just tell us which activity you selected and then yeah, the total calories you burned.
Oh, sorry, I didn't write down the activity, but I wrote down the met value.
Okay,
Whichever
what's that?
one's the 11.
Okay, so you were running at 7 miles
Oh,
or
right.
7 miles per hour.
All right. So running at 7 miles per hour, I burned 981.75 calories in an hour.
Nice, 581 calories an hour. Okay, nice. Abby, you want to share what you got?
I'm good.
Okay. Kelsey, are you finished?
Just about.
Okay. Emily.
I did the biking one.
Okay.
And 499.
499 calories for biking for an hour. Okay. Connor, did you do it?
Yes.
What'd you get?
I did the running
Uh-huh.
and I got 1,200 pounds.
1200. Okay. All right. So, this is something that you need to be familiar with, right? There's going to be questions like this on the exam in order to determine how many total calories were burned or how many calories per minute. So make sure you understand how to use this formula. I believe I have another example right here. I want you guys to use this information up here. A 150-pound person, okay? We're going to determine who's burning more calories or which program is burning more calories. The walking program, so walking for 3.5 miles per hour for 50 minutes, and I will get you that activity factor, don't worry. The running program was jogging at 5 miles per hour for 25 minutes. So go ahead and write at least 50 minutes down for walking and 25 minutes for running. And that this is a 150-pound person. I'm gonna jot back for a second and we're gonna go get that MET value. So running at 5 miles per hour, the MET value for that is 8.3. The walking program, 3.5 miles per hour, the MET for that is 4.3. So it says determine the number of calories burned for each activity.
What's the met value for the second
Let me double check. 4.3 for walking. did we get? What did we get for calories per minute to start for the walking program? Sorry, what?
5.13.
5.13? Okay. And we said that this individual is doing it for 50 minutes, so 5.13 times 50, how many total calories? All right, let's go down here. How many calories per minute? What?
I did 14.11.
14.11? 14.9? No, sorry. You know what happened, Gabby? What do we get? Close to 50? 47. All right, so what burned more calories? Huh? Total, walking burned more calories, right? This individual who walked actually burned more calories. Now, this does not equate to this individual increasing their fitness level at the same rate as this individual down here, right? If we were taking two different people here. We can't really compare that way. But for this person, if they're kind of going, working with both walking and running, but they're trying to keep track of total calories burned or spent within the week, then this becomes really important. Because they're maybe perhaps also keeping track of how many calories they are ingesting. And again, going back to balancing, okay, we need to be expending the same amount of calories as we are intaking in order to maintain. We need to expend more calories than we take in if we want to lose weight, and if we are taking in more calories than we're expending for a consistently long period of time, that's when we start to gain weight. Questions about how to do this? Gabby, did you figure out what you did? All right, so let's look at progression. So factors that are considered for progression is, first of all, the one's current health status, okay, their current fitness level, how active they already are. Somebody who is much more active can progress quicker than somebody who is very inactive. Training responses and goals, so how they are actually responding or adapting to whatever that stimulus is. Beginners should always start low and go slow. Start low in the amount of time that they're spending, start low in the intensity level, and just go slow overall. If they go right out of the gates hardcore and they get an injury, then we're already set back again. So it's really important to try to avoid injury and not give them any reason to think that next time around that they're going to get injured. Let's look at the cool down, at least 5 to 10 minutes, okay? Low to moderate level. The purpose of the cool down is to bring the heart rate and the blood pressure, core temperature, all those things back down. Okay, when you are exercising, you're taking your body out of homeostasis, right? Taking your body out of that. And your body's trying to adapt to this new environment where things are working a little harder, a little faster, etc. So the purpose of the cool down is to bring you back to that starting period. Allow that heart to slow down in a controlled manner and avoid any negative or altered heart rhythms. Okay, here's a really big key right here that you need to remember. Let's say you get done running, it's really hard, and the first thing you do is you lay down. I'm sure you guys have done this before, where you crossed the finish line at some point, or you got done with something, and the first thing you did is you laid down because you were exhausted. Did somebody come over and make you get up? a coach or a friend or somebody made you get up and made you walk. And the reason that they did that, maybe unbeknownst to them, is because when you do that, the blood can pool in your legs. And if the blood pools in your legs, then that causes a drop in your blood pressure. And if you have that drop in your blood pressure, you're likely to pass out, okay? So we will want to avoid that blood pooling in the legs. That's why even if you fall down because you took yourself to that extreme, you need to get back up, you need to walk it off. You need to do a proper cool down to make sure that this isn't going to happen. And to make sure that the heart is staying in a regular rhythm, okay? No arrhythmia is present. This can be dynamic. Oftentimes at the end, this is when people start to do static. Yes, Casey?
Kind of just a comment, but have you ever seen the CrossFit games?
Yes.
Does that ever make you cringe when you see them exactly?
Yes. There's a lot of things about CrossFit that make me cringe.
Yeah.
Just because I know a lot of injuries that have been associated with it. But I think that also goes into the type of coaching. You do have different coaches, right? So I think a lot of it can be pointed at some of the coaches. I mean, those are your extreme of extreme. So yeah, there's a lot of things that make me cringe about that. Okay, that's the last, but we are going to finish up with the Kahoot. Let's see what you learned. And then you are free to go.
Question.
Yes, sir.
So realistically, if your blood pressure, and your heart rate's higher, then you're gonna burn more calories. So
Wait. Did you just say if your heart rate's higher, you're going to burn more calories?
you burn more calories if your heart rate's higher. Reactively.
Okay, for just one individual, if you're just comparing that individual to himself or herself, then yes.
So if a person reduced their blood flow, increase their heart rate by, like, saying having a bad diet, they would burn more calories.
Say that again, reduce their,
If they reduce their blood flow, like they restrict their blood flow and they increase their heart rate naturally, then wouldn't they burn more calories?
if you have restricted blood flow, then there's a major issue because now your muscle tissue and all the working tissues aren't getting the amount of oxygen and nutrients that they need. So burning those calories would be really difficult because a lack of blood flow means they are not getting what they need to perform. And then that's when you have a buildup of things that are negative and work against your performance. So like lactic acid for one, right? Hydrogenated ions is actually what that's called. And some people think that stays in the body for like 48 hours, and that's not true. It gets wiped out really quickly. But yeah, if you have at any time a big lack of blood flow, because what's happening when you start to exercise and your heart starts to work harder, you increase the blood flow. Yeah, that's why your blood pressure goes up. We have that increase in blood flow. We need it because the tissues need the oxygen and the nutrients to function. So if you're talking about, I would only think of a couple different ways to do that. Unless you're on some sort of medication that is causing that. If you're on some sort of blood pressure medication or something like that, then I don't know how else you would, I guess, do that wasn't in a negative way, that didn't impact your body in a negative way, if that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. All right, so here's the game pin. Most of you, I see a lot of you are in. Kinda. Eyes, Meme Queen, Nike, Miss Mini Dr. Evil. Okay, is everybody in? Yes. Okay. We're gonna start. All right, assessing heart rate is most accurate when done for 30 seconds, 10 seconds, 1 minute, or 15 seconds. Nice job. Yep, 1 minute. Okay, that's the most accurate. Other than that, you're doing an average, really. You're figuring out what the average is, where this is a precise measurement. Job. True or false? A lower VO2 max score indicates a higher level of fitness. False. Okay, higher the number, higher level of fitness. Good job. Okay. Each aerobic workout should begin with a warm-up lasting blank to blank minutes. 10 to 15, 20 to 25, 15 to 20, or 5 to 10. Nice, you guys were fast on that. Yep, 5 to 10, okay. If it were me, yeah, I would definitely extend it out. There's a lot of other organizations that recommend a longer warm up and cool down compared to ACSM, but this is ACSM's recommendations. Tonka, again, true or false? Jogging is an example of a vigorous intensity exercise. This one might be a little tricky. False, okay. Now running, this is just a difference in miles per hour, really, okay? But running would be considered that vigorous intensity exercise. Bob moves into the lead. True or false? A 22-year-old has a max heart rate of 196. True or false? False. If we go just quickly off of 220 minus your age, right? That would tell us that this individual has a max heart rate of 198. 220 minus your age. Okay. Six of 8. 1 minute of vigorous exercise is equal to blank minutes of moderate exercise. Nice, guys. Yep, 1 to 2. 1 to 2 ratio there. Bob is back in the lead. Question 7. A cool down should last a minimum of how many minutes? 0 to 5, 10 to 15, 15 to 20, 5 to 10. Yes, 5 to 10. Bob's still in the lead. Okay, last question. True or false? Without a proper cool down, blood can pool in the legs, causing an increase in blood pressure. True or false? False. False. It causes a decrease in that blood pressure, right? If it's pooling, that means it's not getting back up to where it belongs. So that causes that decrease in that blood pressure. Okay, that's always a tricky one. Okay, let's see who made it to the podium here. Great, Britt. Number 2 is Stephen. And in first place, Bob. Who's Bob? Reveal yourself. Okay, nice job. Runners up, Elise and Casey. Okay, nice job, guys. You are free to go. You do have a quiz due, okay? If you haven't already done it, you have a quiz due. Make sure you're studying. Get that study guide and look at it. Start reviewing. We'll meet back here on Tuesday.
Also wondering, could you use my watch in the mornings and stuff
Sorry, what?
for my VO2 max lab? Can I just use my watch?
You mean for your resting heart rate?
Yes, the VO2 max lab. You can just use this to calculate the formula, like resting heart rate, max heart rate.
Okay, so just real quickly,